Hi, my name is Uta Nagel. I'm here today with James Tur, award-winning architect for our beautiful west coast of Canada. We're on Bowen Island and we're looking at a very unusual house that James designed and wants to talk to us a little bit about today. So tell us a little bit about the design process, what your thoughts were when you were putting the whole concept together.
Sure. Well, this is a very unique project, as you can see, and one thing that made it so unique was the client. I have a wonderful client on this project, Nielsen, who is an artist extraordinaire when it comes to landscape design. And my background is also landscape architecture as well as architecture, so we're kindred spirits, and we sort of came together as a team on this. So it was a very collaborative project, and what Wynne really brought to the table was this idea of curvature and curve. She wanted the house to have a feminine side, and she wanted it to really fit in with the natural landscape, which is very much what my architecture is about. So it was really an exploration of what we could do with curves in architecture. So in terms of the process, we started with sort of rough sketches, and it slowly evolved out of this collaboration. And I think the aha moment came with the inverted curved roofs. So originally we were thinking shell style roofs, and so when we inverted the roofs, it was just one of these magical things that happens sometimes in a design process. First of all, the roofs look, they feel like petals falling from the sky, and in a way they honor a lot of the concepts of the house. Most importantly, this idea of rainwater harvesting and catching rainwater, because they're like a vessel for collecting water in their shape, a natural vessel. And then the lower two roofs are grass roofs. They're green roofs with native grasses growing on them, and they'll mature over the winter and into the spring. And that's sort of an honor of the landscape as well, in honor of the sky. So that was really interesting. And the beauty of these natural roofs is you're either harvesting the water or you're actually protecting the environment by not changing the drainage on the site. In fact, there's many little wetlands around on this site that we've managed to keep intact because of that. So it was a great process in that regard.
Yeah, I like when you say the aha moment. It really is true. Like when we have that, the whole concept kind of fits together.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about, talk a little bit more about the roof lines and the structure of the house. How did that all fit together? How did you come up with the structure?
Yeah, well, the really fun thing about this house is working with curves and thinking about how do we do curves but not make it super expensive. So one of the beautiful things about the inverted curves is, if you think about it conceptually, they're flat roofs, except they have this gentle curvature to them. So the house is designed with three roofs that are very much, they're squares in plan view or rectangles in plan view. So we did the curvature in a factory, in a glue lamp factory. So we have the main beams are actually curved, and then the decking of the roof naturally fits over that. And we have a system of beams and purlins and decking. So it was actually very easy to put together. Every post, however, in the house is a different height. So we use the computer to our advantage to actually give the contractor precise heights and then cut measurements for every post. So it was a really interesting experiment of how do you take a very abstract idea, a very complicated idea, and try to make it in its most simple form. One of the magical things about the curves and the structure is what I really love to do in my architecture is make the structure the poetry of the architecture. I don't like handing that off to a structural engineer. I do a lot of the structural design myself. And, and with the curves and the bones, it's very much like many of my other houses. That's sort of the concept of the architecture, of having that structure almost being like furniture and coming together.
Nicely said, the poetry of the structure. That's beautiful. So, we are here on the West Coast, and you are a West Coast architect. So what makes this West Coast architecture?
Yeah, well, West Coast architecture means many different things to many different people, but I think there's a common element of the West Coast architecture for most West Coast architects, and of course all the people who live in this beautiful West Coast architecture we have here in Vancouver and the Gulf Islands. One of the things is this idea of a benign climate in Canada, so we can actually open the house out to the outdoors in the summertime and even into the shoulder seasons. So that's very important. The idea of low-pitched roofs seems to be sort of generic to West Coast architecture in a way that comes from an Asian influence of some of the Japanese temples and having these very graceful roof lines. And then that's probably the key component of West Coast architecture is the Asian influence. Arthur Erickson spent some time over in Asia and was very influenced. And in fact, many of his forefathers of design, like Green and Green out of California, were very interested in Japanese design. Even Frank Lloyd Wright with some of his West Coast buildings. So I think when you think about the climate, you think about designing for rainfall, which is these very graceful overhangs to protect the building envelope, and then you have a little bit of Asian influence because we're right on the Pacific Rim here. I think that's what typifies West Coast architecture, and certainly for me, that's the beauty of West Coast architecture is bringing those three ingredients together.